Hey babe, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy that you're joining me once again. So on today's video, we're going to be talking about wise words from my husband. I'm so happy that he has said yes to being on today's video. Throughout times, my husband will post on Facebook or Twitter these amazing statuses that are filled with so much wisdom that I often steal them and have to share to the world, what he has said. So today I'm gonna have him on the channel and we're gonna be talking about purpose, destiny, all of these wonderful things that are inside of us that God has given and that we have to pour out into the world. So sit back, relax, and I hope you guys enjoy today's video.
Hey baby.
Welcome to Portia Lynette YouTube.
Woo woo.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You're amazing. You're always willing and wanting to do stuff and always helping out in any way possible, and I appreciate you so much.
This is true.
Okay, so today, like I mentioned before, we're going to be talking about purpose and destiny. And today's channel is Wise Words from my husband. So again, my husband makes these wonderful statuses on Facebook or on Twitter that are filled with so much wisdom. And I literally steal them and put them on my page because I need the whole world to see what he is saying. Because again, they're just amazing. So the last status that I posted that was written from you was, when you first get pregnant, all you have is the doctor's word that you're pregnant. There is nothing visible, and some people won't believe you. But if you continue to carry that thing, eventually the doctor's word will be backed up by manifestation, in which no one can deny that you're pregnant. You may not be able to see anything right now, and all you have is a word from God. But if you continue to have faith that what God spoke over your life is true, eventually the mouths of your naysayers will be shut by the undeniable evidence of God's manifestation of his word in your life. Your bump is on its way. Your bump. No, not my bump, but your bump. No bump over here, okay? So can you just, just expound on that? What?
Well, that's probably one of the better statuses that I wrote, but it's just that sometimes God just gives me stuff. It just kind of drops into my spirit. Going throughout the day, he'll just, something will just come up to my mind, and I'll throw it in my notes on my phone, and I'll just kind of work on it and stuff like that. But that one came just thinking about destiny and thinking about purpose. There are so many people out there who have destiny inside of them, and God has told them they have destiny, but they don't believe that they do because of what other people around them are saying. And many times what we do is we put our trust, we say we trust God, but we put our trust more in the opinions of others.
Absolutely.
Than we do with what God has said. So there are times where God will speak purpose into your life, but you won't believe it because it has not been validated by your best friend or has been validated by your preacher or somebody like that.
Yeah.
And what we end up doing is literally aborting what God has inside of us because of the opinion of somebody else. Or we'll walk around with something inside of us that should have been born a long time ago, but we haven't walked into it because of somebody else's opinion.
Wow.
So when you look at that particular saying, one thing it is saying to you is to have faith and believe that what God has spoken over your life is true, even if you don't see the evidence of it right now.
Okay, so talk more about the aborting. Because I think it's so important. We're in a year of 2019 where we need to be surrounded by like-minded people who believe in us, people who not only love us, but I guess, will speak life into us. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
When you look at that, I partly agree with that. I do agree with you need to be around people who speak life into you, and you need to be around people that encourage you. But what you first said at first, be around like-minded people. I understand what you're saying, but some people think I have to be around people who think the same way as me. And I don't believe that. I think that you have to be around people who don't think the same way as you. Because if you're around people who think the same way as you, you reach a certain ceiling. Because everybody's thinking the same way.
Yeah.
But I've always been the devil's advocate when everybody else is speaking yes. I'm saying, but what if? What if? What will happen if this doesn't happen? And I think sometimes you need that person to challenge what God has said inside of you and not just necessarily agree. Because it's in the challenge that it causes you to go back to God and say, God, did you really say? God, is this really inside of me? And what it does is it builds up the faith in you to stand on what God has called you to do.
But when you go back and you say, God, is this really what you said? Should we question God?
I don't think there's a issue with questioning God. It's not a lack of faith when you question God. It's just human nature. Prime example at my job, when I have to do something that's out of the ordinary, I'll go back to my boss and say, are you sure that this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
Right.
Just because I don't want to do something and be wrong. And there are times where we can hear God, but our faith hasn't gotten to the point where our ears are. Because I've heard God say quite a few different things, but my faith just wasn't there yet. Just because God has spoken it doesn't mean that you automatically believe it. And I would love to be like the old saints used to say, if God said it, I believe it, that settles it. Sometimes if God said it, I question it before I believe it, and it settles it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, as long as you're questioning it out of a godly fear. God, I want to make sure that I know exactly what you're saying so I don't sin before you. God, I want to know exactly what you're saying. That way I don't go outside of your will doing what I think you said, but it was really me saying what I want.
Yeah, and I think that he honors that, because he's like, okay, my child really wants to make the right decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely believe that. I mean, just like our son Braxton, he has a little iPad, and he likes to download games.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, if I ever see a charge on my card, you get it. So before he downloads any games, he'll ask me 3 or 4 times, Daddy, can I download this? Yes, son. Are you sure? Yes, you can download. It don't have any cost on it. Yes, you can download it, because he knows that if it costs me something, it's going to cost him something. So, and that's good right there. But if it costs me some money, it's going to cost him some time or his time away from his iPad. And I think that's the same thing with God. God will speak something into you, but the thing about God is he's already paid the price. So whatever you desire from him, he's already paid for. So everything that he speaks to you, you already have access to.
Yeah. So everyone has a destiny, correct?
Correct.
Everyone has a purpose.
Correct.
What if someone doesn't know their purpose? Can you tell them some ways that they can find their purpose here on earth?
I've heard purpose and I've heard passion and destiny described as this. What is it that you would get up at 2 a.m. to do if nobody paid you to do it? What is it that your heart's passion is about? What is it that your desire is about? But I'm a firm believer of, I can't tell you your destiny. I can't tell you your purpose. I can tell you what you're good at, or I can see what you're good at. But believe it or not, sometimes your destiny is not what you're good at, because sometimes your destiny is all wrapped up in God, that he will put you in something that you are terrible at, and he will make you good at it. And one thing we have to get out of our mindset is that if I'm good at this thing, it must be the thing that God has created me for. David was good at shepherding sheep, but he wasn't good as a moral character. You see, but God still used him because of his heart condition. But when you look at your life, you have to say, you have to go before God and ask God, what is my purpose?
Yeah.
What is the thing that you've created me to be? He says that he formed you before they even knew you, before your mother even knew you. I mean, he formed you in the womb of your mother before you were ever known. So you got to understand that God has something that he's placed inside of you, that he put in you even in the womb. You know, God just didn't send you here just to be here. He sent you here to fulfill a purpose.
So one of the ways is, if you can get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and do something, then
it shows what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And usually your purpose is wrapped up in your passion. And just to correct the scripture, it says, before I formed you in your mother's belly, I knew you. So what you got to understand is that when you came into this earth, you already came into this earth with a purpose. And I say what you get up at 2 a.m. to do or 3 a.m. to do. I mean, it may be different. It may be what you get up at noon to do. I'm a night shift worker, so when I get up at 2 a.m., I'm already up. But if you wake me up to do something when I could be sleeping and I'm passionate about it, usually your purpose and your destiny is wrapped up inside of that.
So when we found out that we were pregnant with London, do you remember that day? You probably don't. I took the test and I went back into the bedroom and I screamed and I was like, I'm pregnant! And of course he was like completely calm and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what are we gonna do?
Because she woke me up. I was asleep.
But so of course like there was no bump, there was no signs. If there was a sign, then it was because like I was throwing up. I have a morning sickness, you know. So there was no physical bump that I was pregnant. But we knew that we were pregnant because there was a test that showed that I was pregnant. And I think that's the same thing when it comes to your destiny and your purpose, like you said in your status that you put on Facebook. You know, everyone has a destiny, everyone has a purpose. But again, you may not see it, or the world may not see it because the bump hasn't been displayed yet.
Right. And I think when it comes to destiny and purpose, sometimes we get so excited about it that we tell everybody. We want to tell everybody. We want to tell people what God has called us to do, what we believe that God is coming. But one thing you got to understand about purpose is that just like the baby that's inside of you is hidden for a certain amount of time, you cannot express to everybody what's inside of you, because there are some people inside of you there are some people who are connected to you that will try to molest or manipulate you to lose the thing that's inside of you.
Yeah.
When we look at the Word of God, we can go all the way back to Jesus. As a matter of fact, you go back a little bit further than that, go back to John the Baptist. When Elizabeth became pregnant, she knew nothing about it. It was when Zachariah, his father, was in the temple, and the angel Gabriel appeared unto him and said, hey, you're going to have a son. His name's going to be John. His father, in the midst of that, tried to abort John's destiny. He says, so how is his name going to be John when nobody in my family's named John? And he says that because you questioned it, I'm going to shut you up so your mouth can't deny the blessing that God is in. And he shut him up until the day in which John was born.
Yeah.
And when John was born, he released his tongue when they were trying to name the child. He says his name shall be John.
Yeah.
What happens is sometimes we can get pregnant, we get all excited about it, and we try to label the thing what we think it is.
Wow.
Versus continuing on what God has said it is.
Right. Give us an example. What can we, what have us people done?
I think sometimes God can put into us a desire to write a book, and we think that desire to write a book is, okay, I'm going to write movies, I'm going to write TV shows, I'm going to write this, I'm going to do that. When God said, if you focus on the book, I will show you the next step. And sometimes I think what happens is God will show us something and we'll run with it. And it looks like we're doing great, kind of like a marathon race. If I'm running and I don't pass you the baton and you start running, it may look like you're doing good, but you don't have the thing that transitioned it from me to you. And many times God will say something, we'll take off running, but we have not received the baton in which God has in order to transition it from him to us. And
is that a form of abortion, of aborting our destiny or purpose, or is that kind of like delay?
I think we can delay and abort. I think because God is the only one who can give life. I think we can
take life away.
I think we can delay it to a certain point, but we can also get to a point where we can trust God in the beginning and we start running and nothing happens, and it puts us in a place where we start to despise God because God didn't do what he said he was going to do, not realizing that we were the one who took off ahead of what God had for our lives.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens sometimes. And what happens is that it can be delayed because of those actions, but when we get to a point where we stop trusting God, then we enter into spiritual abortion, where it's like the thing that God has said will never come to birth because we don't trust God anymore, because sometimes we run ahead of what God has said.
So tell our viewers, our subscribers, encourage them if someone is dealing with not knowing their purpose or destiny, or believe that they just don't have a purpose or destiny, or believe they do have it, but they're just struggling at this time. Can you encourage them?
I think one thing you have to do is, one, get in God's face. My pastor who first ordained me, quote unquote spiritual father, he used to say, get in God's face and you'll find your place. I think that's the main place you can get, is get before God and allow God to begin to expose you to the things that he has inside of you. You have to get to a place where, I think in church, we surround ourselves with all these people and everybody's speaking faith. And it's cool to speak faith in that environment, but where's your faith when you're at home by yourself and it's just you and God?
Yeah.
I think that's when the true purpose is worked inside of you. One thing you have to realize is that you have a purpose. You have destiny. You may not have figured it out yet, or many times you could be walking in purpose and don't even realize that you're in your purpose. I know people who like to counsel people, but never seen themselves as a counselor. It's like, well, girl, you do it every day. That's what you do. You know?
Right.
That's when I think of you, that's what I think of.
Right.
And sometimes you just have to be aware of who you are. Cat Williams say, be in tune with your star player. You got to know who you are. You got to know the thing that God has placed inside of you. You got to know what you're passionate about. Purpose will never come without passion. God wouldn't put you into something you despise doing every single day of your life. You have to be passionate about it. If you are struggling with thinking that you don't have a purpose, you do. That's the first thing you got to understand. In the beginning, God. If you can't get past that, you won't understand anything else after that. So as far as purpose, if you're thinking that you don't have a purpose, you do.
Yes, you do.
Let's tune into that first.
Yeah.
I have a purpose.
Yes.
And from that point on, you can start to work and get into the place where God has. If you're struggling with your purpose, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, the hat, the mug, and the souvenir cheap chain. Because you got to realize that sometimes what happens is the enemy will always cause you to struggle.
Yes.
He will always present things before you. And I say it all the time, the enemy has no power, but he does have a persuasive ability. Anytime you look at the devil, the only thing he does is starts a conversation. And what happens is, many times when you're walking in your purpose, what happens is you start to get doubt. You start to hear doubt. And if you're struggling with your purpose, you got to realize that doubt is a sign that you're on your way.
Yes.
Because if you are on your way, if you weren't on your way, there would be nothing to distract you.
Right.
Usually when you're walking in purpose, doubt comes in. You got to push past that doubt and stay focused on what God has called you to do. And that's how you can walk into your purpose. And then eventually you begin to see signs of the thing that you're carrying.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so say it with me. Say, I have a purpose.
I have a purpose.
I have a destiny.
I have a destiny.
And my bump is on the way.
And my bump is on the way. My bump is here.
Well, thank you so much, babe. You're amazing. Can't wait to have you back. We're going to do wise words from my husband once or twice out of the month. So you're going to be seeing his face a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, wait. You guys are still here. Wait, before you leave, make sure you hit that red button down below and subscribe. I promise, guys, this is going to be amazing.